The 911. You either love it or you hate it. If you watch this channel often, you probably already know which side I stand on. But whether you like them or not, there's a reason you'll so often hear journalists say you have to drive an old 911 before you die. For most of us though, there can be a bit of a problem with that. Whether we like to admit it or not, most of us don't want the potential pitfalls of holding an old car. And that's exactly why resto mods have become so popular in recent years. Purists might not like that they're not original, but the whole point is to give you the best parts of a classic while bringing certain aspects up to date, resulting in a car you actually want to drive, not just sit and stare at. Our friends at Lakeside Classics share that way of thinking. They have a true passion for Porsche, and they do sell original classic Porsches, but they also built this. Carrera RSR IROC Evocation. And after laying eyes on it, I cannot wait to drive it. So what is an IROC? Well, IROC stands for International Race of Champions, which was a series in the 70s that brought together a load of big names in racing and put them all in the same 911 3-litre RS to go against each other in the exact same car. Now there were 55 original IROC 911s, and nowadays you'd be looking at a couple of million quid for one. So you can start to understand why people make recreations of old 911s, because if you can even find one, they're just prohibitively expensive and you can't even drive them because of the value. This one's been done by our friends at Lakeside Classics. It was actually based on a 964, believe it or not, to look at it from the outside. It was a Carrera 4, which is kind of handy. Looking at the weather today, it is not nice out here. Henry from Lakeside likes the 964 as a base car because it keeps the classic 911 body but gives more modern performance. The rear seats were ditched and replaced with a roll cage, the front seats were replaced with RSR buckets, the standard 964 sunroof was deleted, and it has lightweight RS door cards with pull cords instead of handles, an ideology Porsche still use today with the straps on their RS models. To evoke the IROC style, it has IROC bumpers front and rear, wider arches, a fiberglass ducktail and original 15-inch Fuchs alloys. In the end, over £30,000 has been spent on the car in the last 12 months, and the result is drop dead gorgeous. It's got the original running gear, so it's got the 3.6 litre flat six, around 250 horsepower, but it's been stripped out, so there's very little weight there, and it actually feels pretty quick. The brakes as well are the standard 964 brakes, which do a perfectly good job because, again, they're slowing down a lot less weight than the standard car. It has a really nice looking twin exit exhaust. And it sounds like that. The gearbox is also the original 964 5-speed, and it feels much more crisp and snappy than any other old 911 I've driven. They can be a bit vague. This, you know exactly what gear you're going into. So what does a recreation 911 feel like to drive? Well, it feels like a classic car for a start. It feels older than a 90s chassis because it's so basic in here and stripped out. The bucket seats are fantastic. I love this Momo steering wheel. It feels spot on. And not having power steering, you just forget how much you lose in modern cars. It's wriggling around in your hand. It takes a bit of effort to steer, but with the light front end of a 911, it's not a chore at all. Every time I get in an old 911, I'm surprised at how close and vertical the windscreen is, and the offset pedals that hinge from the floor take a bit of getting used to every time. But I'm 5 minutes in now. The weather's horrendous, I can hardly see, and I just feel at home in it. It's a proper experience, and you don't have to be going fast. God, just listen to it. It takes some manhandling to change gear. You're just involved in everything you do with this car. God, it sounds so good. 250 horsepower, I know it doesn't sound that much today, but it feels every bit as quick as you would want a car like this to feel. It's all about the experience. It's not about you know, doing the Nürburgring in sub 7 minutes. It's about any speed. I'm doing 50 miles an hour now because the weather's horrendous and I'm having a right laugh in it. I have to have an old 911 one day, absolutely have to have one. You know, a lot of people don't get them, but go and drive one. If you're into driving, you'll get it. And I know a lot of people turn their nose up a little bit at these recreations. Oh, it's not an original. You're not going to drive an original, are you? So you've got more performance, more reliability, and it just means you can go out and use it more. You know, an original IROC, 2 million quid. This is a sniff under 80 grand. Now, yeah, it's not cheap, but at that sort of money, you're not going to be terrified of going out and driving it hard, putting some miles on it. You might even take it on track. And that's the whole point, and the beauty with these recreations is you can make them exactly what you want. I mean, this is a 4-wheel drive 964. Now, personally, you know me, I like rear-wheel drive stuff, but if that's what you're into, you can have a 4-wheel drive classic 911. If you want to strap a turbo to it, you can do that. You can do, you know, the possibilities are endless. You can just make your own 911 and drive it. And driving is absolutely what this is made for. It's so good, so good. I've got to be honest, first thing this morning, I wasn't particularly looking forward to this. I mean, look at the weather, you can hardly see anything. It's a totally unfamiliar car. Old 911s can have a bit of a reputation, and out of these little racing wing mirrors, you can barely see anything. So it feels pretty hardcore when you get in. And you get the enjoyment of a hardcore car. But it doesn't feel intimidating. It doesn't feel like it's going to swap ends on you. It's absolutely with you, but you still get the thrill. It's still raw. I've still got to shout so you can hear me. Wow. Love it. Safe to say I enjoyed that one. And there's a lot to be said for going back to basics, and the more modern power and braking combined with that soundtrack mean hustling this thing along is a properly immersive thrill. As far as driving goes, I can't really fault it, apart from the fact that it is very low on the front end, so you do have to be wary of dips in the road. But unlike so many older cars, it feels totally solid, and unlike the original Special 911s, it isn't so valuable that you daren't drive it hard. I should add that Henry's keen to call the car an evocation, not a replica. Because rather than trying to pretend to be something purely for the sake of image, this is just one passionate Porsche fan's idea of his ideal 911, inspired by the story of the IROC cars he loves so much. So a big thank you to Lakeside Classics for braving a very British day so we could sample their latest IROC Evocation. To sum it up in one line, it's a seriously cool thing you could stare at all day in the garage if you wanted to, but you'd go out and drive the wheels off it all year round too. And at a smidge under 80 grand, I don't think you could ask for much more than that.